Now, the first female commander of the International Space Station, Dr. Peggy Whiston, has written herself into the history books yet again. She spent a total of 534 days in space, a record for an American astronaut. She'd already completed the most spacewalks by a female, as well as being the first woman to head the ISS twice. And to congratulate her, she received a call from President Trump.
And I'd like to know, how does it feel to have broken such a big and important record?
Well, it's actually a huge honor to break a record like this, but it's an honor for me basically to be representing all the folks at NASA who make this spaceflight possible and who make me setting this record feasible. And so it's very exciting time to be at NASA. We are all very much looking forward, as directed by your new NASA bill. We're excited about the missions to Mars in the 2030s. And so we're actually physically have hardware on the ground that's being built for the SLS rocket that's going to take us there. And of course, the hardware being built now is going to be for the test flights that will eventually get us there. But it's a very exciting time, and I'm so proud of the team.
Dr. Peggy Whiston there. With me is Sarah Cruddas, a space journalist and broadcaster. Sarah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
534 days in space. That's got to do a lot of harm to your body, hasn't it?
And going, but you've got to remember it's not cumulative, so this is her third long duration mission, but she's got another, what would be 650 days cumulative by the time she actually returns back to Earth in September. So it is doing harm to the body, but we're starting to explore space. We're starting to push eventually beyond low Earth orbit, which is something we haven't done since the moon landings. And knowing more about the long-term effects on astronauts' bodies, what happens to their bones, how we can counteract that in space, is hugely important if we are eventually to become a spacefaring species and go back to the moon for a long duration and onwards to Mars. So it's another milestone. It's a great achievement for Peggy, and it's just another great way of reminding people that, you know, any kid who's under the age of 16 hasn't lived in a time where humans haven't lived and worked in space above Earth. And it's great that we're able to remind people that we are living in a space age, and there's a lot of hugely exciting things happening, and women are breaking barriers, not just men.
I was going to say, she's planting the flag for women up there in space, isn't she? I mean, she's been ISS commander twice. Yep. More spacewalks than any other woman in space. Now the longest-serving
oldest woman
astronaut,
in space as
and
well.
The oldest woman in space
First female
as well.
head of the astronaut
yeah, I mean,
office.
what an example for women and young girls out there who might be thinking, you know what, it isn't a man's preserve up there. Women can be in there and mucking about as men as well as men at any time.
Well, absolutely, and I think often young girls get put off science for just that reason. But I think she is really planting the flag. But she's smashing records for humanity, not just for women. Let's get it correct.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll live in a time where you don't have to be the woman doing that, you know, it's men versus women. But there are longer records cumulative in terms of spaceflight, but what she's achieved in terms of US spaceflight is absolutely phenomenal, and it should be applauded.
Yeah, and President Trump does seem to be interested in space travel, space conquest, however you want to put it, and that must be good for explorers out there who do feel that, you know, money has been cut back from space exploration to a degree. There's been a lot of focus on the International Space Station, but beyond that, tricky.
Let's just be clear, though, President Trump still hasn't appointed a new successor to be in charge of NASA, and funding has been cut for NASA, particularly in terms of Earth science, which is so important because we go into space not just to explore, but to improve life on Earth, and that money has been cut with Trump as a president. But what we're seeing at the moment is the International Space Station is probably going to be around for less than a decade, and then we've got to have something beyond that. The European Space Agency is looking at a lunar base. Some private companies, Elon Musk, for example, who runs SpaceX, is saying, hey, let's go to Mars. China, which was under the Mao regime during the Apollo moon landings, is now saying we want to land a person on the moon and eventually head to Mars by the late 2020s. But what we're actually lacking is direction and focus, which is what we saw during the Apollo era, where everyone was targeted just on going to the moon. So at the moment, you've got some people who want to go to the moon and some people who want to go to Mars. So it's a very different space era we're living in. And you've got this combination of an international space race with players which weren't around 40, 50 years ago, and then also a private space sector which is rising, which will transform the way we explore space Because as soon as you can make money, it's, you know, you can think of Apollo as the Columbus moment, and now this is the Mayflower moment in terms of exploration. So you're seeing these private companies looking at mining asteroids, looking at mining the moon for ingredients for rocket fuel, which will enable us to go further and further into space. But also, once you can turn something into a business, more people are going to invest, and just space as a sector will just transform in ways we can't imagine yet.
Sure. Okay, Sarah, good to see you. Sarah Cruddas there. Thank you.